Here's the truth. Tons of singers brag about their vocal range. G5, A8, C7. None of it matters unless those notes sound good. But vocal range is still a very important measurement for singers. So how do you find your actual vocal range that really makes a difference in your singing? It's simple. Ooh, let's go! We live in a singing culture that treats vocal range as the end-all be-all of singing. Bruno Mars, Sam Smith, Axl Rose, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, all of these singers have a tremendous vocal range. As a matter of fact, the most common reason that people take voice lessons is to expand their vocal range. In case you're not familiar, vocal range is the measurement of the distance from the lowest note that you can sing all the way up to the highest note that you can sing. Like for example, from C3, that's the C in the third octave below middle C, up to C5, that's C in the fifth octave, the octave above middle C. And it makes sense that everyone wants to expand their vocal range. I mean, everyone wants to hit higher notes. But there are lots of issues with using vocal range as a measurement of vocal ability. The problem with a measurement as simple as vocal range is it only takes into account the quantity of notes that you can sing, not the quality of them. One thing that singers like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, and Ariana Grande have in common is that in addition to having a great vocal range, they also have tremendous vocal control and all those notes sound good in their voice. But there's nothing wrong with using vocal range as a measurement when you're first getting started. I even have a free app that tells you your vocal range in just 6 seconds. You just sing your lowest note and your highest note, and it tells you your vocal range. You can check it out here. But this is what we call absolute range. Absolute range is what you can test on almost any singing app. It will tell you the lowest note and the highest note that you can sing. But what's harder to measure is the range of notes where your voice actually sounds good. This is what we call usable range, and it's always smaller than absolute range. But there's even a fancy Italian term for it too. We call it tessitura, or tessitura. Tessitura is actually a much more helpful instrument because it can actually tell you where your voice sounds good. If you're just looking at absolute range, you may miss some crucial notes in your voice that actually don't sound good at all. For example, let's say that you have a vocal range from G3 up to C6, which is actually a pretty typical range for most soprano singers. Most likely, not all of the notes in that vocal range sound good. If you pick a song like Mariah Carey's Vision of Love, you'll actually see that the song fits perfectly within that vocal range. But if you're still struggling with that A4 like a lot of sopranos do, then you're actually gonna really struggle during the chorus because that's not a part of your usable range. Tessitura isn't a perfect measurement of vocal ability either. There are actually lots of transitions that you have to make as you go from low notes up to high notes. You may feel very comfortable in the bottom part of your voice, what we call the chest voice, ah, and the top part of your voice, the head voice. But you may feel that there's a weakness in the middle part of your voice. The famous Italian tenor Pavarotti talked about this as kind of like a figure eight, where you feel really comfortable in the bottom part of your voice and in the top part of your voice, but you have to narrow or close through the middle.
On F sharp. Allora, you can start. Suspect a strangle, eh? If you do. I don't make much più fatica. It's easier.
This is what many singing techniques call the bridge or the passaggio or the passage. And making this bridge sound even is the whole point of mixed voice training. But remember, none of this weakness in the middle part of your voice affects your absolute range. It's not even part of the measurement. If you just go by absolute range, then it's very convenient to completely overlook this really awkward part of your singing voice. The bridge or passage tends to be in a very, very predictable location for most singers. It tends to start around E4 for men, and the same passage tends to happen around A4 for women. Now that bridge location can change depending on the vowel, the intensity or the volume that you're singing at, or your vocal tendency. Do you realize what this means? It means that many men will actually find it easier to sing a B4 than the E4 a perfect fifth below it. Mum. And that B4 is way higher. The same thing is true of women that can sing the C#5 just fine, but have a hard time with the A4 below it. If those notes and transitions are hard for you, make sure to work on them with targeted exercises like the gee, or the nay, or even the mum. Oftentimes, getting those notes right actually unlocks the vocal range right above them and makes them sound even better. Kind of like once you have those notes, you can hit the ones above them even better. Of course, everyone wants to hit higher notes, but many singers are missing the point. They think that if they could just squeak out an extra note or two, that means they're improving. But to me, those are just numbers on a page. It doesn't matter how high you can sing if those notes don't sound good. Do you agree? Are you guilty of bragging about your vocal range even though you know you have some weak spots in your voice? How do you measure your vocal range and how it sounds? Share your story in the comments below.